U.S. prosecutors say Iran plotted to assassinate a former president. And they didn't call their diplomats or even their military. Instead, they turned to gangsters. Court filings and sworn affidavits reveal how Iran's regime built a global kill list, outsourcing murders to gangs, hitmen, and cartels in a desperate bid for survival. Iran's rogue regime isn't just making headlines, it's making kill lists. In a Manhattan courtroom, prosecutors read aloud the most sobering kind of story. Farhad Sakeri, an Iranian national, had been instructed by his handler in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC, to prepare and implement a plot to assassinate Donald Trump before the 2024 election. The indictment read that according to Sakeri, an IRG official directed Sakeri to provide a plan within 7 days to kill victim 4, aka Donald Trump. If Sakeri was unable to put forth a plan within that time frame, the IRGC would pause its plan to kill Trump until after the U.S. presidential elections because the IRGC assessed that victim 4 would lose the election and afterward it would be easier to assassinate Trump. In the age of Donald Trump, where politics is all drama, this isn't just theater, it's real, and it's not just rhetoric. It's personal, and it's documented in sworn affidavits filed in a U.S. court. A targeted strike in retaliation for what the regime viewed as humiliation after President Trump ordered the 2020 assassination of Iran Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani. Iran's leadership was desperate. Tehran couldn't respond militarily. Its army was built for repression, not for real war. It turned to Hitmen. The Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime reports that over the past decade, Iran has turned to criminal markets as a strategic tool to pursue its geopolitical goals. This wasn't war, it was murder. Let's pause for a moment. Iran's military weakness is also why it has spent over $500 billion to develop an atomic bomb. Iran and Israel are now at war, wrote Johns Hopkins scholar Vali Nasr. The long shadow of conflict between the two has erupted into a deadly exchange of bombs and missiles, pushing the Middle East to the edge of a precipice. Back to the courtroom scene. Sakeri was just one name on a long list of plots to kill not only Donald Trump, but former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, and journalists, including Masih Alinejad. After 2 men were convicted of plotting to assassinate her in her home in New York City, she told the AP, "I am relieved that after nearly 3 years, the men who plotted to kill me have been found guilty. But make no mistake, the real masterminds of this crime are still in power in Iran." And many more radiating out from Tehran. The United States Institute for Peace has documented over 88 Iranian extralegal plots and assassinations worldwide against Iranian dissidents, Israelis or Jews, Western targets, and Arab and other regional targets. This is the map that the United States Institute for Peace has compiled of all the plots that have been uncovered worldwide. And one level deeper on this plot to assassinate Donald Trump, while I can't find any public record of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei directly ordering these assassinations, the IRGC, responsible for most of the plots, answers to the Supreme Leader alone. Iran's constitution places the Supreme Leader at the top of the military intelligence hierarchy. So while the orders may not bear his name, the system is built to reflect his will. According to a Department of Justice indictment from January 2024, Naji Sharif Zindajasti, an Iranian based in Tehran, conspired with 2 Canadian nationals to assassinate dissidents in the United States. The tool of choice? SkyECC, an encrypted communications network favored by narco gangs. "We got to erase his head from his torso," said one of the gang members. "We have a 4-man team ready," replied another. SkyECC wasn't just any app. It was the go-to encrypted network for international drug traffickers, arms dealers, and hitmen across Europe and North America, until Europol cracked it wide open in 2021. At its peak, SkyECC boasted over 170,000 global users. many of them hardened criminals. When authorities infiltrated the platform, they uncovered a gold mine: murder plots, trafficking routes, assassination orders, and Iran's operatives were using that tool. And here's the twist. After Europol shut down SkyECC, the IRGC simply kept using it despite the risk of interception because it was already part of their playbook. So this wasn't just about espionage. It was gangland murder committed with state sponsorship using drug cartels' own tools. They form a wide pattern of Iran's shadow foreign policy, executed not through diplomats, but through gangsters, ex-cons, and contract killers. And yes, even the Hells Angels is involved, according to European intelligence. And the Hells Angels weren't alone. New Lines magazine reports that Iran has successfully turned away from ideological allies such as Lebanon's Hezbollah and turned toward international crime syndicates as a tool of foreign policy. Iran's use of criminals is both deniable and effective, wrote analyst Matthew Levitt. The emerging state power and organized crime is a hallmark of modern authoritarian regimes. What we're finding here is that criminality isn't an aberration in this Iranian regime. It's the essence of what it is. At the center stands not a revolutionary or a reformer, but a survivor in Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Iran kills across borders, it recruits across prisons, it hides behind a flag and operates like a cartel. But that cartel is starting to crack, and what comes next may not be a state at all. In the months following the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, Iran lost what it took decades to build. It built and supported several non-state paramilitary organizations, including Hezbollah, which means Party of God. I heard one Persian tell me recently it ought to be called Hezbollah Satan. Given the fierceness of the October 7th attack, Israel had to dismantle Hamas. As the Wall Street Journal put it in January 2025, Hamas must be destroyed. The survival of both peoples, Israeli and Palestinian, depends on it. And it did so. The Iranian Islamic Republic's vast network of proxies, its so-called axis of resistance, collapsed, and with it, Tehran's deterrence strategy. Inside the regime, pressure mounted. Khamenei's public grip tightened, but internal chaos grew. His Revolutionary Guard watched years of asymmetric warfare vanish in weeks. So they did what mafia states do when cornered: outsource the violence. The nuclear gambit wasn't working. Sanctions were biting. Their new strategy was simple: use gangs to intimidate defectors abroad, try to assassinate Trump, escalate chaos, but deny responsibility. A strategy both deniable and destabilizing. The regime's external operations became a replacement for conventional war. The Fordo nuclear site was hit by 12 American bunker busters, but instead of fighting back militarily, Iran sent messages through mayhem, hit lists, and murder plots. Which brings us to the end game: fear as the final weapon. What does a rogue regime do when every strategy fails? When proxies fall, when missiles miss, when nukes are neutralized? For Tehran, the answer is to avoid diplomacy and escalate the unthinkable. Assassination, extortion, domestic repression, global intimidation, and weapons sales. But fear has a shelf life. In 2024 and 25, Iran's strategy reached its apex with its limit. But if the curtain is pulled back, does the magic trick still work? And while the regime might survive for now, the myth of its undaunted power is dead, because terror can only buy time, but not legitimacy. What Iranians fearfully refer to as the Syrification of their country is not a reassuring scenario for the US or Iran's neighbors, but especially in the Gulf, writes Vali Nasr in the Financial Times. Syrification is, according to Brandeis University scholar Nami Sarabi, a country brought to its knees through civil war and the arming of ethnic minorities by outside groups. And the risk doesn't stop at Iran's borders. A failed state of Iran's size, population, and geography would pose threats that are orders of magnitude graver than have been witnessed in Libya or Syria. Militias born out of remnants of the Revolutionary Guards and criminal networks, perhaps armed with missiles, drones, and even what will be left of Iran's nuclear material, could threaten the Gulf and Europe and would quickly become the US's problem. Which leads to the next question. Will the collapse of Iran's proxy militias spur it toward dangerous desperation? Suzanne Maloney writes in Foreign Affairs that with Israel's success in neutralizing Hezbollah and the toppling of Iran's ally in Syria, Iranian leaders may conclude that the nuclear option is their only option. As anyone who has studied this issue knows, the whole issue with the Middle East and Iran is a complicated issue. So to truly understand Iran, its contradictions, its strategies, its cycles of repression and rebellion, we must study more than just the headlines. And here is a curated reading list compiled by the Financial Times editors and readers in 2025. For historical and strategic insight, I recommend Iran's Grand Strategy by Vali Nasr. Then there's Iran's Rise and Rivalry with the U.S. by Mohsen Milani. Iran, Empire of the Mind by Michael Axworthy. And Foreign Meddling and Coup History. Nothing is better than All the Shah's Men. I had a copy of it. I gave it away to a Persian not too long ago. Great book. It reads like a novel, but it's real. And we can't really understand something unless we really get the human impact, human stories and resistance. Women, Life, Freedom by Marjan Stratopi. Marjan Stratopi also did this wonderful book, graphic book called Persepolis, about her childhood in Iran and escaping from the regime. It was also made into a magnificent animated film that everyone who's interested in the subject must see. It is so well done. You'll find all the sources I've cited, plus the full reading list linked in the description below. And if you like this episode, please comment below. Let me know what you think. Look over here for other videos I've done. There's a lot more to get to, a lot more that is coming your way, and I will see you in the next video.